You stupid bitch. Yeah, you're a stupid bitch. You stupid bitch. Yeah.
Welcome to this week's episode of Stupid Bitches Say What, the Aussie podcast about everything and nothing, but always with wine. Yes, I'm drinking wine this evening,
Oh, nice.
not beer. And your hosts, your favourite hosts, Sean Hipkins and Skye Collett.
This week it's back in time, and we are discussing some inspiring figures from history. Listen in as I discuss the story of Anne Frank, the young Jewish girl who was forced to go into hiding to evade Nazi persecution during World War II, and penned the now world-famous Diary of Anne Frank. While Skye discusses one of the truer Aussie icons, former Prime Minister, the Honourable Gough Whitlam, the political and social reform he inspired in Australia and the legacy that he left. Now, what, pray tell, are you drinking, you stupid bitch?
Well, look, at the risk of getting super blind on this double episode, I've decided to go back to our roots and drink some white wine this evening.
Woohoo!
Tyler purchased this first bottle. He purchased both bottles for me, and I said, "Just get something I haven't drunk before." He's like, "Babe, come on."
That's a needle in a haystack.
But look, the second one I'm going to drink this evening is one I have drunk before, but this little number is one I haven't drunk before.
Ooh.
So it's called Petaluma. It's a lovely picture of a couple of little
bunches of grapes.
Bunches of grapes. Yeah. I was going to say bundles of grapes. Surprise, surprise! It's a Savvy B, Adelaide Hills. It's 2022. So in the wine womb.
No, it's fresh out the wine womb. We haven't done a wine womb for a while, have we?
I know. It's it says it's fresh and zesty with tropical fruits and racy acidity combined with exotic herbaceous aromas and sweet
herbaceous.
Fruit.
Jesus.
Herbaceous.
That's outrageous.
It's a little bit sweet. But you know, it's Friday night. I've had a tough week. It's going to go fucking
it's a hot day.
Quite fine and dandy, I must say.
Cool white wine. Give us it's a little bit sweet that which you're tasting now.
Oh no, hang on. I'll taste on there, shall I? I had a sneaky one.
You cheeky bitch. I hold off.
I normally hold off. It's getting a little bit tartar. It may have been that I had half a Aldi Goslemay before I had my first sip for dinner. So
yes, yeah. Sometimes it does take the second sip to actually get the true flavour.
Yes, look, this is going to go down a treat.
Good. I'm glad for you.
I'm not worried at all. It's lovely. And what, pray tell, are you drinking, Sean Hipkins, please?
Well, Skye Collett, I am also on the Savvy B bandwagon tonight.
Twins.
I know. It is just getting too hot. I do love my reds, and I can still drink it in summer, but it's just getting a bit too hot to not appreciate the fine white wine. This one is A Lay of the Land.
Oh, I haven't seen that one before.
And it's a Savvy B Destination Marlborough. 2022. 2022. It's an Angel funded wine. There you go. 7.4 standard drinks in one bottle. And the writing is too small and the lighting ain't good, so I can't see what the fuck it says. But let me have a sip.
Please do. Yours looks colder than mine. I think mine's a little bit warmish.
Oh, that's nice. You know when it sort of goes, and this is terrible, but when it sort of goes down like water.
It looks icy too, like the glass looks really cold.
It is frosty.
Isn't cold enough. I need to yell out to my husband and say, "Hey, come
put a glass in the freezer,
please."
StupidBSayWhat. That's a glass your husband got us for Christmas.
Oh, yes. I'm drinking my Parramatta Eels most valuable supporter.
Oh.
Skye.
It's not in the bin.
Christmas. No, well, it's my glass, so Tyler wouldn't dare put it in the bin.
No, done. But yes, it's nice. I totally recommend. And at 7.4 standard drinks, alcohol content is good.
Well, there you go.
So how has your week been? Crazy busy, we understand thus far.
Yes, I feel like that's a running theme, isn't it? Yes, crazy busy. I want to talk about a couple of things. First of all, I want to discuss that we had a little crazy weekend away. I think we talked about on the podcast. We were going house hunting down south,
Yes.
and we decided to make a weekend of it, which was
Yes.
awesome. And then randomly, some of
Good,
Tyler's
because
family.
just to cut in, I was actually really disappointed in myself that I didn't follow up and ask how this was last weekend, how it all went. So
Yes,
I'm
well,
glad you're bringing it up.
look, we looked at a couple of properties. Both of them were actually pretty cool, but one was a little bit smaller than we thought, and it had, so most properties that we're looking at, because they're a bit more regional, have like sewage on site or water tanks and stuff like that. That's part of the course. This one, the first one that we looked at, had no internet service for starters. It was fucked.
Goodbye.
um
How
and
can you podcast in those
I
conditions,
know.
please?
The realtor tried to explain to me that it was just an issue with our phones and we'd be fine, yada yada.
Nah,
Like, people had no issues.
well, that shit.
So maybe we could have troubleshot that shit, but but it had a giant water tank. Like, I'm talking probably 3 meters by 3 meters and upstanding, quite high, big, massive plastic one, which I get, like, you need it, when it gets dry and stuff like that. And it was a dirt road to get to it. So a little bit more regional. Lovely
You
house,
anticipated.
lovely little bungalow, had a great little fire pit area out the front. It was really kooky and really cool, and I liked it. But maybe a little bit small for what we're after and
Fair
for the
enough.
price range. And then the second house we looked at was on the water, on the river,
I did
up a
see a
little
photo of
bit
that
of
one,
a
actually.
cliff, and it was lovely. It had a pool on site. It was a double block and a back block. It was fucking huge, the land. The house was really, it had these wonderful couch bench seats around a kitchen table in the kitchen, and the kitchen
Yeah.
was super modern. But it was built in 1905, they thought, because they couldn't actually determine, because it's such an old house, they couldn't
Yeah.
actually determine its original build date. And they had definitely renovated it, but so remember the Lismore floods, so it's
Yeah.
Grafton, Lismore area. So the floods, it came quite, even though the river's down a bit of a cliff, it came all the way up to the house.
Oh, wow.
And it was a once in a lifetime type flash flood. Do you know what I mean? Like, you probably wouldn't see something like that for another 100 years or something like that anyway.
Well,
But
they say that, but look at what happened with the fucking Brisbane floods.
exactly, yeah. So it's hard to tell. And apparently the water never came into the house, and it could be a completely different thing. But as we were walking on the floor was all sort of, uneven and stuff like that. And at one point, Tyler thought he was going to fall through it, and it would have, based on my uninformed, inexperienced opinion, I would suspect that it probably needed a whole new piece of flooring in the whole house.
Yeah. Well, if Tyler's getting nervous walking on it,
yes,
that's no way to live.
No. So, and I spoke to my brother-in-law, and I was like, what do you think? And he was really keen to go and have a look, but I don't know, seemed like a lot of effort.
Yeah. It's not just down the road.
No, and I don't know. To me, I think a flooring is a big piece of work. But other than that, it ticked all our boxes. So that was a little bit disappointing. But we ended up going to Urunga, which was the place I was supposed to go for my 40th birthday. But then COVID happened, and we had to cancel when there was about 40 of us going to stay in cabins and camp and stuff like that. So that was really cool, and it's a really cool location. But we did a number on ourselves because we hadn't seen Tyler's family, his cousins, since the wedding. And they all ended up being there randomly. Like, it was a complete coincidence that we booked in the same weekend and they were going up.
Yeah, that's cool.
And ended up partying until about 6 a.m. in the morning. And pretty much I said to Tyler, if we're going to hang out with them, we're hanging out with them on the first night. We're not hanging out with them on the second night because we'll be ruined.
Yeah.
And
you have to drive
home.
back.
So we hung out with them on the first night, completely ruined ourselves. Spent the second night watching the football grand final in bed in the little cabin that we're in.
Well, that's nice and cozy, though.
Getting takeaway. We didn't go to the beach. We didn't swim. We didn't enjoy any of the scenery except for the pubs.
Oh my God.
So yeah, amazing weekend. It was a great weekend. But yeah, not exactly what we had planned.
Productive in the holiday sense.
We'd be getting a tan, having a bit of a swim in the sea.
Do you know what though? Like Vidya and I, that's how we travel as well. When we go overseas, and we do, especially if we're in Europe or somewhere like that, and there's some great country, you go and see some of the big stuff. But most of our holidays revolve around what pubs we went to, how shit-faced we got, how we spent the next day hungover in the hotel room. And you know what? Fuck it. If that's what you like
I
to do,
know. Look,
then
it
that's what you
was
want to
really
do.
cool. It was so great to see his family. We had such an amazing time with them. Like we had, just hours of conversation and catch ups and reminiscing about the wedding and just all that sort of stuff. When you see, you know what it's like, when I lived on the Central Coast and when we would get together, it was just like you squeezed every drop of enjoyment out of that interaction
Yeah.
because you knew you wouldn't see each other for who knows when next time. So,
Yeah.
that's the thing about living apart from people that you care about.
When you catch up, it's party time. Let's
Yes, when you
connect.
catch
Yeah.
up, you absolutely make the
Well,
most of it.
our kind of people do that stuff. There are people that go on hikes and shit like that, but that's not our jam.
Look, we hiked a lot through Urunga that evening
Mm.
because there's not much to do. So we pretty much just wandered back and forth from the pub to the park to the cabin to the beach to the pub again,
Oh
getting
god,
our little takeaways. And
get your steps up.
one of Tyler's cousin's partners, he brought a whole massive bag of oysters.
Just wondering where that was going. Not gonna lie.
of, of oysters. So in the shells, the ones that you have to use the knife to open.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
you're
You
not
got
a
to
seafood
shuck them.
person. Yes, I'm a seafood person. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my God, we're going to be best friends.
And could you
Like,
shuck them?
he shucked them for me. He was just like literally like cracking them open with his little knife and handing
Is
them to
this
me.
John Butler trio?
No, that's Tyler's actual cousin. This was one of his cousin's partners who was
Okay.
doing this. So yeah, so
And I bet
it
he
was
was proper handy with that type of shit. He'd
yeah,
probably fix the
yeah.
flooring in the house if he needed.
Yeah, totally. So it was a really good night of laughs and funny stories and
Yeah.
shenanigans. So it was amazing. We had a really good time.
Well, very good.
And the other thing I want to quickly talk about as well is that this week I sat down and finally been meaning to do it for ages, taking a leaf out of your book.
Mm.
Sat down properly and did our budget for Tyler and
Oh,
me
very
because
good.
as we're
Yeah.
we're saving for a house and saving for other things, and I decided it was time to really, really sit down and analyze our spending
Mm.
habits.
Mm.
The results
It's
were
quite
quite
shocking, isn't
shocking.
it? Yeah. Yeah.
Our surplus income is quite significant considering how
Compared.
much we don't really have left over most weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that.
And the outcome of that was basically that I said to Tyler, if we tweak not change our lifestyle really in any way, just add a tiny bit of structure to how we spend our money,
Yeah.
we could be saving
A
3
bit
to
more.
4,000 a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's crazy when you
I've
actually look
got
at the bills.
I've got an Excel spreadsheet that's got formulas and all that shit. I'm happy to send you the template for it
Well,
if you
I
like.
do have that as well, and I've always
Oh,
had
very
that,
good.
particularly when I was younger and I was on my own. It was just me and Lincoln. I had a mortgage on my own, and so I had to be very careful with my spending. But we've gotten a bit lax lately, and it
Yeah.
was funny because I put down all our streaming services. Guess
Mm.
how much we pay a month on streaming?
Oh, look, I wouldn't be surprised because we'd be the same.
It was about
Um,
$160, which to be fair isn't a huge. I was actually like, do you know what? It's $160 a month. That's not huge in comparison to some of the other shit we spend money on. But I'm
yeah.
talking, Stan's $31 a month. We pay
Are you
$31 a
sure?
month for Stan. I swear to God, it's on my bill. I went through my bank statements. Whereas Netflix, we get the cheaper
Oh,
version.
have you got like a lot of connections for it or something?
I think we've
Should
only
be. It
got a
says
multi.
$21 a month. Oh,
Well,
Stand Sport $15. Do you have that?
no, we have KO. So we pay $30 for KO because it's got all the sports on it.
Okay.
So we pay for that as well. So, we're going to actually get rid of Stan. I decided that all the other ones, we've got Prime, we've got Disney. We use my sister's Binge. We've got Netflix. What else? There was a couple of others, but I decided Stan's the one that's got to go. And look, when something
Yeah.
comes on Stan that I really want to watch, I'm sure I'll pay it
Switch it
again.
back
But
on. Yeah.
$31 a month for something that we haven't probably watched anything on in about a month or two. I think
It's a lot.
let's get rid of it and do some other
Yeah.
things. But between Tyler's PlayStation subscription for his dumb
Of course.
PlayStation and
Yeah.
Link's Xbox subscription, and then our
Yeah.
$22 Spotify family
Yeah.
plan, so that we're all on the same one, so it's
Yeah.
slightly cheaper. It does really fucking
It adds
add
up. Yeah, I've just had a look at mine on my spreadsheet, and ours is $161 a month for our streaming, Foxtel, and iTunes Music, which
Well,
is
we
a
were
family plan.
tossing up getting Foxtel and getting rid of KO because you can get the better sporting pack with the Foxtel. So we're sort of still tossing up, but then we probably, the Foxtel deals are really good for a while, but they've gone back up in price again.
Yeah. See,
So-
our Foxtel's really good. It's like $50 a month. And they increased our service all for free a few months ago, where we were able to ditch binge, but you don't pay for binge anyway, so it's not really. So we were able to ditch binge because it's kind of Foxtel's brother, basically. It's got a lot of the same shit, most of the same shit on there.
Yeah. But it was a very interesting exercise, and Tyler was like, I want to compromise my lifestyle. And I was like, seriously, we have like per week, after savings and credit card payments and loans and all the stuff that we have to pay, we have like a $500 surplus per week.
Yeah.
That just,
goes.
Just goes. And it's like,
I don't want to compromise my lifestyle.
Everything's expensive, but I'm like, we buy like 4-packs, like Tyler buys his 4-packs of Woodstocks, and I buy a 4-pack of Smirnoff and stuff like that, and that's $50 just for 8 cans. Like,
no, see that
just
type
buy
of
a
shit,
bottle of fucking vodka,
or buy a carton of them and just fucking keep some. Yeah,
it's just about being a bit more savvy, isn't it? Really, and just watching, going, I can tweak this, I can tweak that, I
refuse to buy a 6-pack of beer or anything. It's always a carton. Yeah.
When I first met Tyler, he used to always be like, I'm just going to grab a 6-pack. I'm like, no, you will fucking buy a carton.
Yeah.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like $25 for a 6-pack these days.
Stupid boy. Get down there and get yourself a carton right now. It's probably like, yes.
And I canceled my Naked subscription a little while. Didn't cancel it, just paused it for a little while because we were getting the case and drinking it in a week.
Yeah.
But it's much cheaper than paying $20 or $40 for 2 bottles of wine on a Friday night for podcasting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I've got to do another Naked subscription soon. My wine racks are getting a bit empty.
I bet they are. Used to.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. How's your week been, stupid bitch?
My week's been good. It's also been fucking hectic. The last 2 weeks actually have been really, really busy.
Same. We've both been crazy flat out, haven't we?
It's just been like where at the end of the day, you're frantically getting this done. Hang on, I've got to do this. Hang on, I've got to do that.
Yeah.
And I've got my work conference next week down in Hobart, which would be great. So I lose another week of stuff there. But it's good. Like, I can thrive in that stuff when I know what I'm doing and I've got to get it done. I can really focus on it and get it done. It's when it's shit that I don't know what I'm doing or have no idea is when my inner alarm bells go off, being like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to leave. I need another job. This is shit, and you talk yourself up a ledge. It's actually okay. Just find out and then you'll be all right.
Yes.
But so it has been busy. So I've got a couple of things I would also like to talk about. I'll save one of them for the last one because it can be a group discussion. But now you know about this already, but I caught the bus to work the other day and Vinny and I were down the front. I went to sit on a seat. The guy didn't move his leg. Those rude people that do that shit. And Vinny had to ask the lady to move her bag. We were sitting separately. I saw a seat up the back of the bus. I'm like, let's just go up the back. So we walked up the back, sat down there. It's one of the banana bender buses, the 60 now, the double length buses.
Oh, it sort of like has
the bendy bit in the middle.
Yeah.
So they're all the 60s now throughout West End. And we never sit up the back. So we sat up the back, and then a guy 3 seats in front of us on the other side turned around about 2 minutes into the journey and said, I am the Holy Trinity. Good morning, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful day. Make sure you pick up any litter that you drop and protect Mother Earth. I'm the Holy Trinity, blah, blah, blah. Then he turned around and said to himself out loud, but not looking at anyone, and one day I will conquer the world. And I was like, oh my God, he is going to pull a gun. He's going to pull a knife. He's going to do something, come up with a plan. And so then in my head, I've got my duffel bag on my lap, and I'm like, okay, if he does anything like that, just charge at him with the
plan.
I always have an escape
Where's
plan.
the panic room? Stat.
Charge him with the duffel bag, so if it has a knife, it won't go through there and all this shit.
I love
and it's
that
just
for you.
if we're in the cinema and we're sat in the cinemas, like I'll always think, okay, what's a quick way out if someone
Oh
comes
my
crazy with a gun, or
God. See, that would never
always
even
have an
occur to me.
escape
I just
route.
would have been like all enthralled, been like, oh my God, look at this fella.
Well, it was like that, but it's just like, oh, you're making me uncomfortable, dude. You know, if you're the Holy Trinity, don't scream at my face. But so that was my next question. Do you ever come up with plans when you're in those scenarios or anything?
No, never.
Yeah.
I think do you know when I freaked out? When was that time that we were in the pub and that huge, massive Bucks party was in there and it all got loose and the SWAT team came? Was
Oh,
that
I
one of
don't think I
the
was there.
No, you were. That was one of the movie premieres. Do you remember we were at
Ah,
you remember and they were all wearing the Hawaiian shirts and they were
yes.
super loose.
Yes,
There was
yes,
all
yes,
that
yes, yes.
screaming going on, and
That
we
was
were
before
standing
Hot.
outside having a vape.
We were
And I
in
said, I
up
grabbed
at
all the girls.
the
I'm like, you need to get inside now. These people are too crazy. Like they're off
yeah.
their faces. Like this is going to end badly.
But then they came upstairs to where we were,
Yes.
yeah.
And they were grabbing the glasses. The guy was serving them at the bar and they
RGs?
were smashing them. Not RGs. It was, what's the
What
one?
is that?
It
It's
starts
at the
with
top.
T.
Stock Exchange.
Oh, that's it. There's a T in there.
The Stock Exchange. Yeah, so we're upstairs. Yeah, no, you're right. I remember that when
And
they all came
when
up.
they started getting served and were smashing the drinks on the ground and throwing them across the room at each other. And this was afternoon. This was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the
Yeah,
afternoon.
yeah.
And I was like, this is way too hectic for me at this time in the Arvo. Like, and when the police came,
It was quite confronting.
I was like, take them fucking away. And then they let them all go. Do you remember? They didn't even arrest them. They all got their IDs out, but they said, you've been warned. We've
Yeah.
got cameras everywhere. There's CCTV everywhere.
They were
We've
like,
got
we'll
all
just go
your
to the next pub. And
IDs.
they're
And
like, you're not getting in.
yeah, you won't get into any other pubs. You need to go home. But they didn't arrest any of them. And I was like, this is going to end badly. Like these people are so annihilated.
Yeah.
And I had
And they were fucking feral looking as well, weren't they?
I had a bit of fear that time, but normally I'm like, oh, drama.
Drama. Did you come up with an escape plan though? Or were you just like, oh shit?
No, I just was like backing away constantly, like trying to remove myself and get as far
Put
away.
people in between
Put
you
as
and
much
them.
distance. But I kept going because I think Ebbs was with us and there was a few other people. I just kept grabbing them and going, no, don't go over there. Come over here.
Yeah.
Like stay away. And I grabbed them all from when they were vaping at the front. I was like, it's too hectic. Come inside. Come and sit on the opposite side of the pub. These guys are really scary.
And get your phone out just in case.
Because it all kicked off because one was choking one in the toilets and the toilet sort of backed onto the front entrance when we first got there. We'd only been there 20 minutes. And
like play choking or
well,
sex choking?
they were screaming at each other. And we realized after that it was a bit of a muck
Tussle.
around, but it didn't look like that at all. Like it looked insanely aggressive.
They are 100% the type of people I never want to hang out with or associate with.
Yeah.
They're not my kind of people at all.
They were out to beat people up, I think.
Yeah. Too aggressive, too much fucking testosterone for me. And that's saying something. So the other thing I wanted to quickly talk about, and you can add into this, is Oktoberfest weekend that we had last weekend for part of Vinny's birthday. What a fucking amazingly fun / messy day.
It was so crazy. Yes, it was insanely messy, insanely crazy. I can't believe we stayed and as late as we did. Really,
yeah,
I love that you guys backdoored it, just the two of you, even though there was a whole bunch of people there. I thought you would have went home.
We backdoored it at like 9 o'clock.
Yeah, we were in the I was video messaging you in the cab at about 9:30. So the only reason I got stuck there was because I couldn't find my fucking vape. What happened to my fucking vape, Bino?
Vinny took it. Not me.
And do you know when I sent you that video blaming you, I was joking. I actually did not think that you or Vinny had pinched my vape at all.
Well, I was
just being a bitch.
Vinny had. And then we pulled it out when you're doing it. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, because I could only imagine how gutting that would be. It's just like, that's my motherfucking vape, bitch. I need that now more than ever.
I had a bit of a tanty too, and some of Vinny's friends were still there. And I remember one of them coming up to me and going, I'm sure it's somewhere, love. And I had a dead one that was in my bag that I brought that had gone dead while I was out. And I knew it was going to go dead. And that was my freshie. Vinny stole my freshie. And I was like, no, this isn't the one. She's like, here it is, here it is. And I'm like, no, that's not. She's like, give me your bag. Let me go through it. Maybe you just can't find it. And I was like, I've already gone through it. And she went through it. She's like, no, it's not in there. I was like, I
You're
know
like,
it's
well,
fucking not in there.
bitch. I'll have to look, because was it a cola lemon?
Yes,
I haven't seen it
lemon,
around
cola lemon soda.
since
Vinny probably smoked it and binned
No,
it.
he
So
would not. He's only a mint smoker. He hates it. That's why it was even weirder that he ended up with it. I'll check and see if it's in our cupboard, but you'll get it back.
I can't even remember how he got it from me. Like, I didn't even know. I would have noticed if I'd given him a toke of it. Like,
Yeah. I have no idea how
I
he's
must
ended
have
up
put
with
it on the table and he's just grabbed it thinking it was his.
That's what
that's
I
the only
think's happened.
explanation.
Yeah. Well, look, at least he didn't lose his mobile phone at this Oktoberfest. It was
Yes,
just a
'cause
vape.
anything could have happened.
Anything could
really.
have. That's
It was
exactly right.
very, very messy by the end.
We were there from 12:30 till 9, as I said. Vinny said he decided to call it a night when he saw Kylie pouring a drink into my mouth. And I was going, while she poured it down my mouth.
And we were on the dance floor for a while too. Do you remember that?
No.
And then we
Now
were
I'm
dancing.
having slightly flashback. Yes, now I remember it.
Yes, and we were totally dancing for ages. And then all of a sudden, Tyler came up to talk to me on the dance floor, and I talked to him. And then I turned around, and we were in the middle of a song when he came up, a song that we were both really into. And then I was talking to Tyler for like 30 seconds, and I went to grab him to come dance with us. And I turned around, and you were gone. I was like,
Oh,
where the fuck did he go? And I was looking around and going, I can't even see the back of him. Like, he's just literally fucking.
I was probably like, I can't stand here solo. I can't stand here solo. I need to
We
go.
were still on the dance floor. He was literally like a meter away from me, and you were another meter away from me. And then I turned back, and you were just going, "What the fuck?"
Were we like singing to the people on stage too? Like,
Yeah, we were, because they kept
God.
like pointing out to us because we were so enthusiastically dancing, and everyone else was trying to, be like there's like lots of families still around and stuff like
in
that.
their dreidels or whatever.
Yeah, we were just like spinning around and throwing our arms up in the air and stomping and.
Oh God!
Yeah, we
Fun
were
times.
messy as
I just
fuck.
got sweat through my feet. I guess I can now remember that. Anyhow, it was a fun day, and I'm glad I've got a bit of a sober weekend coming up.
Yes, us too.
Except for tonight. All right, so should I get
no judgment, please?
Yes, should I get started? I think it's me first this week.
Yes, it is you first, please. Commence.
All right, so Anne Frank, and the reason why, because I know this is a bit of a tragic story. The reason why I picked it as an inspirational story is even through all the turmoil and all the shit that this poor, well, so many people went through at that time, and all the people in the secret annex, she still was able to find solace, take comfort in writing in her diary, and her writing is amazing for a 13-year-old girl. I think she is. It's in my notes.
It's very saddies for me. Sorry about that.
It's totally saddies. Totally saddies. But, she was able to still persevere, write in a journal, and she ended up becoming a fucking world-renowned author, basically, through her diary. So anyway, Anne Frank, posthumously. Humously, not humorously, posthumous. Hummus. I know that's chickpeas. Right. Anyway, Anne Frank, a Jewish girl, was born on the 12th of June, 1929 in Frankfurt, Germany. Anne was the second daughter of Otto and Edith Frank. In Frankfurt, the Franks lived a relatively normal life. Anne's father, Otto, ran a successful business, and her mother, Edith, took care of the household, as they did back in those days. Anne had an older sister, Margot, and Anne was a lively and precocious child known for a spirited personality. The family moved to Amsterdam in 1933. Yeah, Amsterdam. To escape the persecution
One of my favourite places.
Yeah, mine too. To escape the persecution of Jews in Germany due to the rise of the Nazi regime. This relocation to Amsterdam marked a fresh start in a new country for the family, but it did not take long for the shadow of Nazism to follow them. So in July 1942, and World War II had started officially in 1939, as Nazi persecution in the Netherlands intensified, Anne's family went into hiding. So Anne had just turned 13 at this point. It was just after her birthday in May.
Baby.
She was only a baby. And her birthday in June, sorry. So this is a month after her birthday. They were joined by another Jewish family, the Van Pels, and later a dentist named Fritz Pfeffer. They concealed themselves in a secret annex within Otto Frank's office building in Amsterdam. So there is another amazing person in this story. Her name is Miep Gies, M-I-E-P. So Miep, I'm guessing, Gies, guys, who helped the families with the hiding space, though she was not the only one, of course. But Otto called her when he was formulating his plans and informed her of the plans to go into hiding. He asked Miep if she would be willing to help him and his family if they had to go into hiding in the secret annex. She did not hesitate for 1 second. She's done all this other cool shit in her life too, this lady, Miep Gies. It's definitely worth the read if you're interested in this stuff. After the arrest of the victims in hiding, she kept Anne's writings hidden in a drawer of her desk. So she found the diary, she kept it hidden. She died. In what year would you predict she may have died?
Meep.
Yeah.
90s.
2010.
What?
She was 100 years old.
Whoa.
And she died after complications from a fall. So she was still kicking until she fucking had a nasty fall. Otto Frank actually enlisted help from 4 of his employees who worked at the office, and they would become known as the helpers. Miep Gies, Bep Vosk, and look, I'm going to fuck up these pronunciations. Bep Voskjul, Johannes Kleeman, and Victor Krugel. The helpers brought the family food, clothing, and other supplies while they were in hiding. So I think I've touched on this in previous episodes, and I think we've discussed it, but I've been through the house twice. Once in 2006 as part of a Kentucky tour, and then again in 2019 with Vinny. And it's for what it is. It's an incredible experience, really. You enter the stairway behind what was a secret bookcase doorway, like it's sort of left ajar. And then it's incredibly narrow as you walk through. There's not a huge heap of space, but you can see that the residents did their best to create a home, for sake of a better word, that would be somewhat comfortable for them. There are bedrooms, areas to walk through, kitchens, etc. But of course, it was locked up and hidden away and whatnot. So life in the... Well, they had windows, and there was something, I'll get to this in there. I found it quite interesting and I'd like to discuss with you. So life in the secret annex was characterized by confinement, silent, and a constant fear of discovery. The inhabitants had to remain quiet during the daytime hours to avoid suspicion and do most of their activity of a nighttime, which is a very fucking scary way to live. Like, imagine if during the daytime you did something where you dropped your shoe or knocked a pan or onto the floor, and you're then there for the next hour wondering, are you going to get fucking done for it? It'd be fucking petrifying. So despite the circumstances, Anne found solace in her diary. The residents of the annex had to adapt to their new restricted life. Anne attended school lessons by correspondence. I don't know how that worked. She did. And found companionship with other residents. She shared her small bedroom with Fritz Pfeffer, the dentist, which I thought was a bit creepy, and faced conflicts and tensions in the close quarters. To also try and create some normalcy with their day-to-day living, they had a standard daily routine that they would follow. So they would wake up at 6:45, and this is obviously all from Anne's diaries. They would wake up at 6:45 a.m. to the alarm of Mr. and Mrs. Van Pels. They'd put the kettle on, and then they'd all take turns using the bathroom. So there was a routine in who used the bathroom first, followed by next, rah, rah. And I'm sure if someone was busting, they may have broken that routine, but pretty much it was a schedule. At 8:30 a.m., a risky half hour would start. The men in the warehouse started their working day, while the office helpers had not yet arrived. So any noise from the people in hiding was dangerous, as the warehouse was located below the hiding place, and the warehouse staff were unaware of the people in hiding. So they didn't know people were hiding in there. They would come in and work. If they heard some weird noise, they'd be like, what the fuck? At 9 a.m., the helpers started working in the office above the warehouse. So the annex, I guess the living, The warehouse, I'm guessing, is right down the bottom. The people in hiding walked around in socks and still had to be quiet, but sounds from above now caused less suspicion because the warehouse would be hearing the people in the office above them.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the morning was devoted to reading, studying, and preparing for their lunch break. So they're still just keeping life happening and trying to keep it as normal as possible by doing their studying and making sure the kids are still keeping their schooling up and shit like that. It's just incredible. At 12:30 p.m., the warehouse workers went home for lunch, and the helpers and the people in hiding had the place to themselves for a while. At 12:45 p.m., a few of the helpers, usually Johannes Kleeman, Victor Kugel, and Bep Voskuschel, came up to the secret annex to have lunch with the people in hiding. In the beginning, Johann Voskuschel, who was Bep's father, often came up too, so he knew about it as well. Jan Gies, who's Meep's husband, frequently joined them as well, although he worked elsewhere. So they were still giving them that human interaction and all this shit.
Yeah. But how scary for them as well, like
Yeah. Because if they get caught, what a horrible time. Horrible fucking period. Meep Gies usually stayed in the office to keep an eye on things. For the people in hiding, it was nice to see other people and to hear the latest news from the city. At 1 p.m., the radio was switched on for the BBC News, and at 1:15 p.m., they'd have lunch, and at 1:45 p.m., the helpers went back to work. So in the evening, the warehouse workers would go home around 5:30. Helper Bep, I'm not going to pronounce his last name anymore, or hers, usually came by to see if the people in hiding needed anything. After she had gone, after she had gone home at 5:45, the people in hiding were no longer restricted to the secret annex, and they'd spread out through the building because there was no one else there. After dinner, they read, talked, or listened to the radio, and at around 9 p.m., they started preparing for the night. Pieces of furniture had to be moved. So, for instance, in the room of Herman and August Van Pels, they'd have to move some of the furniture to make the beds fit, I guess, or, so they'd have a bit more space and there wasn't fucking chairs in the walkways. Just like in the morning, they took turns using the bathroom of a night. Every day when the sun went down, the windows had to be blacked out. And after that, the secret annex went quiet. The next morning, the alarm went off again at 6:45, and they'd take the stuff off the windows to let the sun in. So unless they mean the windows downstairs, they blacked them out so they could walk around. I'm unsure. Anyway, except on Sundays. So a Sunday in the secret annex had a completely different rhythm to it, and it was characterized by scrubbing, sweeping, and washing. As Anne wrote in her story, Sunday. The people in hiding were slow to get going. The first one to get up was Fritz Pfeffer at 8 a.m. He was the first to go to the bathroom. Then the Van Pels family were next, and one of Anne's ordeals was watching Fritz Pfeffer pray for 15 minutes. From 10:15 a.m. onwards, it was the Frank family's turn to use the bathroom. Breakfast didn't start until 11:30 on Sundays, and after 3/4 of an hour, everyone went to work, scrubbing the carpets, doing the laundry, making the beds. Anne's diary became her sanctuary, a place to express her emotions, thoughts, and dreams. She wrote extensively about her experiences, the challenge of living in confinement, and her involving perspectives of the world outside. Anne's diary, which she named Kitty, was a constant companion. Through her writing, Anne sought to understand herself and the world. Her diary entries documented not only the daily life in the annex, but also her innermost thoughts and aspirations. Her writings reveal the ordinary concerns of a teenage girl, such as her relationship with her family, her views on friendship, and her budding romantic interests. So apparently the Van Pels had a son, Peter. Well, it's not apparently, they did. He was a 15-year-old boy who was also in hiding, and he becomes her boyfriend. Bless her. They also highlight her growing awareness of the horrors unfolding outside the annex. So when they would have gone into hiding, shit would have been starting to really steam up. Then they've gone into hiding and shit's really hitting the fan outside, and they'd be hearing about it. So the fear and all that fucking shit, just being like, what the fuck is this actually real life? All because of their religion. So in August 1944, and after 761 days in the annex, the inhabitants received a terrifying visit. They were betrayed, and the Nazis stormed the hiding place,
I was going to
arresting
say, too
everyone
many people
inside.
knew.
Well, I'll get to the betrayer in a minute. But yeah, there was a lot of people that were coming up and just having lunch and all that shit. But yeah, no, you're right. There was too many people knew about it. And who did they mention one night drunk
And
or
they also
whatever?
used to, people were always trying to catch them out too, weren't they? Because
Mm.
everyone knew that there was all these secrets and people, not them necessarily, but
Yeah.
it was like, we'll give you money to give them up. Like
Win
there was
favor.
always ways that you could influence a situation. So having too many people know was just super dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. They should have kept it at maybe the 4 and that's it, or even just fucking 2. Anyway.
I blame Meep's dad. He didn't need to be in on it.
Meep's dad did not. No, it wasn't Meep, was it? It was
Whose dad was just there?
Johan. It was Bep's dad.
Oh, Bep. Oh, Meep and
Yeah.
Bep. Sorry. Apologies. I thought that was one and the same.
So the Franks, the Van Pels, Fritz Pfeffer, and 2 of the Dutch helpers were taken into custody. It was a devastating moment as they were separated from their sanctuary. It would have been horrendous, absolutely horrendous. There are a couple of people suspected of betraying the Franks and other hideaways, and there have been numerous investigations into this, including one that took place, I think, in 2016 by the people who facilitate the Anne Frank house. They did an investigation because they want to try and find out, because there's no actual concrete evidence who betrayed them. However, in 2017, a former FBI officer announced that he would be looking for the possible traitor of the people in hiding with the help of an international cold case team and new technology. On the 17th of January 2022, so just last year, the cold case team presented their findings. The team concludes that Anne Frank and the other 7 people in hiding were very probably, with 85% certainty, discovered because of the actions of the Jewish notary Arnold Vanderberg, a member of the Jewish Council, who they say may have handed over the addresses of people in hiding to the Nazis in an attempt to protect himself and his family.
Yeah.
So he would have given up more than just Anne Frank. There would have been a few. Anne Frank's obviously, and the other residents, super popular because of the writings she left behind.
Yes, and the history that you can actually, you can account for.
Yeah. It's documented, This conclusion has triggered worldwide controversy and stirred up some strong emotions. There's a ton of this information online again, so if you are interested, I'd definitely recommend looking into it. And there's other suspects too. So before they did this cold case investigation, there was another guy who they really thought was the one who betrayed them. But I'm not going to go into that. So the arrest marked the beginning of a harrowing journey through various detention centers and concentration camps. Anne and her sister Margot were first sent to Auschwitz, one of the most infamous concentration and extermination camps. That's in Poland, isn't it? Auschwitz. I think so. The conditions were horrendous, and the brutality of the camp was overwhelming. Separated from their parents, the sisters clung to each other for support. So the number of Auschwitz victims includes 960,000 Jews, 865,000 of whom were gassed on arrival. So as soon as they arrived, they were gassed. 74,000 non-Jewish Poles, 21,000 Romani, 15,000 Soviet prisoners of wars, and up to 15,000 others, probably the gays. Those not gassed were murdered via starvation, exhaustion, disease, individual executions, or beatings. Others were killed during medical experiments. It's fucking it's like a bad American horror story that goes on for years, isn't it? It's just absolutely terrible.
It's the one thing, like, I have a massive love of history and I love researching historical topics, and it's always been really passionate of mine, but I can't deal with anything related to the Nazis, and
it's just Auschwitz, so barbaric, isn't it?
It's so bad for me that I just think I can't even fathom how someone could be that evil.
Yeah. I know.
it's too bad. Like, and the brutality that all those people went through. I don't like to watch movies. Anytime it's got something to do with that, I won't watch it. I
So
just
you've never done
can't.
Schindler's List?
Can't do it. It's just, there's some things that really
It's
just you find upsetting.
just too
That's too upsetting for me.
too
Yeah.
true and too sad.
Even when there's like a heartwarming ending or there's something
Yeah,
positive
yeah.
about it, I still can't go through the brutality. That's why I like when we were in Germany and everyone wanted to go to see the concentration camps. I was like, no way in hell. I would be bawling. I would be literally in tears if I had to go through that. Like,
See,
and I know my cousin went and he saw the part, and I don't know if this is the German concentration camps. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but the ones where they showed the experimental rooms.
Oh, yeah. Because it was
where
one
they
of
did the
them.
medical experiments. And I was like, oh my, there's no way. If I had to see that, I think my soul wouldn't recover from that. I know it happens.
Yeah.
I know it happened, but
you're
to
not
see
blocking it out. Yeah. You're just not
I don't
traumatizing yourself.
I'm not interested in seeing
because there was one of them that was obsessed with twins, one of the Nazi leaders that was obsessed with twins and did a lot of medical experiments on them. And there wouldn't have been anesthesia. Well, that's funny because my next question was, would you ever go to one? I would totally go to one. I wouldn't do it in the middle of Oktoberfest, which is a happy vibe place and all that stuff. I definitely wouldn't do it then. But I would go to one just to, and I've been to the Holocaust Museum in Berlin. And that's it's eye-opening. It's very sad. It's hard to explain the feeling that comes over you. It's like sorrow, just complete sorrow. Anyway, later, Anne and Margot were transferred to Bergen-Belsen in late 1944. The camp was overcrowded with inadequate food, sanitation, and medical care.
How old were they both? How many years after they went into hiding?
So that was in late 1944. They went into hiding in July 42. So 2 years.
She would have been 15 then.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. She was born in 29. And they were in the house for 761 days, was it? So that's over 2 years, just over 2 years. Yeah. Anyhow, the prisoners endured malnutrition, disease, and harsh weather conditions. This is a story that we heard when we were at Anne Frank's house. She had a best friend before the war called Hannah Goslar, and they went to the same kindergarten, primary school, and later to the Jewish Lyceum. Hannah didn't know that the Frank family were in hiding in the secret annex. She thought that Anne and her family had fled to Switzerland. The Goslars also ended up in the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. Well, Hannah did. And she spoke to Anne there for the last time. So she saw her best friend in the concentration camp years after. So basically, what I can gather from my research, and I know how sensitive this is, so if I get anything wrong, my sincere apologies, listeners. Don't hate on me. I did my best. Hannah was already at the camp. When they brought in the new prisoners, they kind of halved the camp and put up a barbed wire barricade between the two and stuffed it with straw so they couldn't see through. Prisoners weren't allowed to communicate with the other camp. There was guard towers around with the Germans in there. If you tried to communicate, shot dead. But they would go at night time and try and get information from each other across the barricade, because that's what it'd all be at that point, isn't it? Like when you're in those situations, you don't know what the fuck's going on. Someone's new come in. What's happening? What's going on? Because you don't have any idea. Where am I? But they would go at night time and try and get information from across the barricade. After about a month, an old lady goes up to Hannah and tells her that there are people from Netherlands over the barricade, because the lady knew Hannah and knew she was from the Netherlands. And the lady had spoken to a woman called Mrs. Van Pels, who was in the annex, who also told her that Anne was there. Anne's on the other side of the barricade. And she knew that Hannah knew Anne, this old lady. She also told Hannah to go to the fence at night time and try to talk to Anne. And I'm assuming from that, she's like trying to give the little girl a bit of hope or create something in her life. Go talk to her, get some interaction with somebody that you know and love, and don't despair and hope's not lost. and it's at night time, and they were all doing it. She goes, and Mrs. Van Pels is at the barricade, and she heard Hannah softly calling for Anne. Anne. And Mrs. Van Pels says, hang on, I'll go get her. So I'll read what Hannah said. Anne came to the barbed wire. I couldn't see her because the barbed wire was stuffed with straw. The lamps weren't very good. I may have seen a glimpse of a shadow. It wasn't the same Anne that I had known. She was a broken girl. I probably was too, yet it was terrible. She began to cry right away and told me, I don't have any parents anymore. My mother is dead. That was true, but she couldn't have known it. Edith Frank died of exhaustion in Auschwitz in early January 1945. Anne thought that her father had been gassed too, but Mr. Frank still looked very young and healthy, and the Germans didn't pay attention to the age of those they wanted to gas. They made their selection based on appearance. I always say that if Anne had known that the father was still alive, she would have had the strength to survive, because she died right before the end. It was literally just a matter of days. Tragically, Anne Frank did not survive the Holocaust. She died in Bergen-Belsen in early 1945, just weeks before the camp's liberation. Her sister Margot also perished. Oh my God, I'm covered head to toe in goosebumps with this. After the war,
sick. It's awful.
No, and she died weeks before liberating, like literally weeks. After the war, Anne Frank's father, Otto Frank, the sole survivor from the annex, returned to Amsterdam. Miep Gies, the helper who helped him from the beginning and had provided the occupants in hiding, provided for them, gave him Anne's diary, which had been left behind in the annex. The diary's content was a revelation to Otto Frank. It offered insight into Anne's inner world and the experiences of those in hiding. Touched by Anne's words and her desire to become a writer, Otto decided to fulfill her wish and have her diary published. Anne's diary, with the assistance of Otto Frank, was published as The Diary of a Young Girl. It has since become one of the most widely read and translated books in the world, providing a poignant account of the Holocaust and inspiring countless individuals to strive for a world free of hatred and prejudice. I'm sad to say I've never read it, and I really wish we bought a copy when we were in Amsterdam, and I kind of feel like we did. I feel like it might be in the bookcase, but I'm not sure. Isn't that terrible? Have you ever read it?
I feel
you
very
can't.
emotional now. I'm quite upset about that.
Sorry.
I've teared up a little bit.
I can see it.
I think it will represent a specific view, though, that unless you're really into like historical views and things of that time, like it's not like something it's not a book you're going to pick up and have a happy experience. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's not a book that's going to make you walk away and feel good.
And I don't think it's a book that's like a documenting everything that went on in Nazi Germany. It's like her life in the annex, what was happening in the annex, what was happening outside that she knew of, and that type of stuff.
Yeah, I think it would be like an important thing for children, like, teenagers to read. Like,
I wish we read
English
that instead of fucking
stuff.
Tessa the D'Urbervilles, for fuck's sake.
Lots of people do read it in school. I never did. I read it.
No, we didn't get it.
Different stuff. I always loved reading books in English.
Yeah. So, like many other Jews, Anne did not survive the Holocaust, but her diary did, with over 30 million copies sold, and it's translated into 70 different languages. Anne Frank's diary is regarded by scholars as an incredible first-hand account of what life was like for a Jewish girl during German occupation. The Anne Frank
only account, really, isn't it?
Well, I mean, there's probably some other stories, but this is like
real life, like what actually happened.
The Anne Frank house, located at the site of the secret annex, has become a museum dedicated to preserving the memory of Anne and the Holocaust.
That's cool that they did that too.
It's actually incredible that it survived. Do you know what I mean? They're able to keep it in its condition. They didn't tear it down. They didn't remove the annex, anything.
Yeah.
Anne Frank's life and her diary continue to be a reminder of the Holocaust's horrors and the enduring human spirit. That's why she's my inspiration. Her story encourages to promote tolerance, understanding, and the importance of bearing witness to history to ensure that such atrocities are never repeated. Through Anne's words, we see the resilience of a young girl who, in the midst of unimaginable suffering, held on to her hopes, dreams, and faith in the goodness of humanity. Her legacy lives on, inspiring generations to stand up against injustice and hatred. How relevant considering what's happening tomorrow. I know.
That was
It's
full
deep.
on.
It's deep, isn't it?
That was really sad.
I'm sorry. I know. Yeah, I know.
I'm okay.
It's crazy because I wrote them, the notes, obviously, but even rereading them, when you're reading them out loud, I think
That's fucked up.
it really hits home how fucked up that shit is. And
Mm.
there's still so much shit going on in the world. Obviously, we're not in World War II yet, and we don't have things on that scale. But knowing, like, and I don't want to get political, but what's happening in fucking, with Palestine and Israel at the moment and all that shit that's going on, it's just like, chill out and have a motherfucking barbecue.
Totally.
Kick back, listen to a tune, drink a beer, and laugh with your mates.
Totally. Whoa, that was intense.
It was. But do you get the inspiration, any inspirational?
Oh, without a doubt, completely inspiring. I
Mm.
just think it's just really fucking
Tragic.
sad.
It's very tragic.
And I hope that Hitler's fucking being in hell, like, and he's still,
Yeah.
being tortured to this day, and
Yeah,
for the
agreed.
next thousands and thousands
Agreed.
of years, really badly.
Horrible,
Really
man.
awful. Getting
Yeah.
his nuts shot off every day.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, and dying in his own blood and then
Being
reliving it
gassed.
every day.
Having experiments performed
Yeah,
on
totally.
him.
Actually, that's better. Having the experiments performed on it and then waking up the next day and then reliving it again.
Fucked up.
Yeah. Whew. Well, I'm glad we didn't finish with that. I'm glad you went first.
I was going to say, I'm also glad I went first because your one's a bit more empowering and uplifting than that one.
That was hard to hear. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to do Gough. My man, Gough.
The main man?
Yes, who I also think is actually really spunky.
Yeah, I can sort of see
I
that.
find him really attractive.
My mum it's her idol is Gough Whitlam.
I love him. I actually proper love him. And through over the years, I've always like read stories about him, and I just always walk away just feeling like, what a fucking dude.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
For back then too.
I'm going to have to get a little bit political because to talk about the reform that he made, I'm going to have to go through some of the adjustments that he made to be able to push through that. So it will get a little bit boring at times, I think, but I probably should have just summarized the main things, but I feel like it's really relevant to go through what he actually did.
Yeah.
But
look, this is your story on someone who inspired you, so it's okay for you to be political about it.
So every time I read anything about Gough Whitlam, I'm always left feeling really inspired. I think he's a bit of a political legend, to be honest. And considering the referendum this Saturday, I'm pretty comfortable in my opinion that he would 100% be a yes. He would have brought this on years ago if he could have.
Yeah.
Anyway, we won't digress on that.
Well, I'll just say quickly, my heart is already hurting for what tomorrow's going to
Me too. It's not a vote that I'm going to feeling happy about the outcome at all.
Yeah.
Anyways, the Honourable Gough Whitlam. Gough was his middle name.
Oh.
Edward was his first actual.
Oh, why do I switch that up?
I don't know, actually.
Gough probably had a bit more fucking, debonair about it. Yeah, a bit more
to it. Yeah,
bit more punch in the Gough.
Yeah, I love it. Because you don't really hear about any Goughs these days, do you?
I haven't heard of a single one since or before.
So he was born in July of 1916 and was the 21st Prime Minister of Australia. Actually, I'm going to bring my notes down here because I'm looking up there, aren't I?
1916.
I know.
So he was born before Anne Frank.
Same year as you.
I fucking bitch.
You gotta be quicker, Bino. You gotta be quicker.
I was referring to Anne.
I've still got a few little tears in my eyes. I gotta wipe them away. So hang on. I have to bring you back up because you've gone. Where are you? I've brought this little tab down, but now I can't see you. Hang on.
Right here.
Hide self view.
It's the same year as you fucking cow.
And was the 21st Prime Minister of Australia, serving from 1972 to 1975. And I want you to remember that. And I'm going to repeat that throughout this story. But such a very, very, very small couple of years
Yeah.
for the things that he changed that we are still living right fucking now.
Do you talk about and it's okay if you don't, but do you talk about the It's Time campaign?
No, I don't. I
So,
don't do it.
the It's Time campaign is all about
Yes.
Gough getting in. And my mum said
I
she
love
was
that.
pushing Stuart around in his buggy, who was born in 1972, with It's Time banners hanging off it and shit like that. I love it.
Yeah.
What a boss.
You showed me the videos. You
Yeah.
showed me the video of the It's Time. I love it. So he was the 21st Prime Minister of Australia, serving from 1972 to 75, and held office as a leader of the Australian Labor Party, of which he was the longest serving. He was notable for being the head of a reformist and socially progressive administration. I love that description of him. Like, I wish that we could say that about our leaders right now.
I know.
He was a reformist of a socially progressive administration. Yeah. Like, it's just those words together just mean so much.
Yeah, there's so much weight in there. And the only other one that I can think of that has been as memorable or as impactful is Bob Hawke.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. It can also scull a beer on telly. Love
a yard glass.
A yard glass. It extraordinarily ended with his removal as Prime Minister after controversially being dismissed by the Governor General of Australia, said John Kerr, what a fuckwit, at the climax of the 1975 Australian constitutional crisis. The budget, basically.
Yeah.
Whitlam is the only Australian Prime Minister to have ever been removed from office against his will. Yeah. And look, we know of lots who didn't want to go, but their party stepped in and there was a behind doors,
but not from the Governor General or
whatever. Exactly.
Which is really the only power that, one of the main powers that the Crown still has over Australia is that the Governor General can do that.
John Kerr's a big fat jerk as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, me too.
A little Gough trivia. Despite being born in Melbourne, he spent most of his early years in Canberra, our nation's capital, and until 2008, he was the only Prime Minister who had spent as much time, really lived most of his life in Canberra. He was dubbed the young Brolga when he entered Parliament. For his height, he was 194 centimetres tall. He was massive, right?
Tall man.
An imperious bearing. Now, what is a Brolga, I hear you ask? The
Brolga
is an Australian bird, considered to be a native to the crane family of bird plus. It is a tall, upright bird with a small head, long beak, slender neck, long legs, mostly grey, with an orange band under its head. It's featured on the Queensland.
I was going to say, it sounds like you until you said long legs.
You fucking bitch. It's featured. I should have a long slender leg.
You do. What's that?
Pardon me.
Coming through. I've seen your beak pick up a wine from fucking 2 meters away.
It's so hot in here, this room. My glasses are steaming up. It's featured on the Queensland coat of arms, and it's apparently the formal bird emblem of the state. Mr. Whitlam, in my opinion, looks nothing like a Brolga.
No.
He was in active service in the World War II as an RAAF navigator, despite suffering badly from air sickness. He's the only Prime Minister dismissed from office.
Yep.
So Gough Whitlam became Australia's 21st Prime Minister on 5th of December 1972. His Labor government, the first after more than 2 decades, set out to change Australia through a wide-ranging reform program. Yep. Whitlam's term abruptly ended with when his government was dismissed by the Governor General on the 11th of November 1975. The public lives of Gough Whitlam and his wife Margaret extend over half a century. After serving in the Air Force, he joined the Australian Labor Party in 1945. He became the member for Wirrawah in Sydney South in 1952, retaining the seat in 11 more federal elections over the next 25 years. He led reform of the Labor Party platform during the long years in opposition. As Prime Minister, he immediately set about implementing a reform program that included strengthening Australian status by making Queen Elizabeth II Queen of Australia. His government drew on international agreements to develop programs on human rights, the environment, and conservation. Margaret Whitlam played an important role as a political and prime ministerial wife, an outspoken public speaker, broadcaster, and columnist. She accompanied Gough Whitlam on his countless overseas travels. I feel like they were the ultimate power couple who just had the exact same values, who just inspired so much change. She was a qualified social worker, particularly interested in social conditions. So I feel like together they were just like, let's just make Australia better, guys. Let's just come together and we're both going to do it together. Like she's like out there doing her social work. He's like in politics, like influencing real change. And together they were just like killing it, right?
Yeah.
Their public lives continued after they left the lodge. Mrs. Whitlam died in March 2012. Mr. Whitlam was a barrister. The couple had 4 children together, and he died 2 years later after his wife in October in 2014. So yada, yada, yada. There was a whole lot of political stuff that happened when he first went into politics, right? But the key thing, I think, that kicked off the social reform that he started was in 1972, December 1972, Gough Whitlam and Deputy Prime Minister Lance Bernard responded to the failure of the Northern Territory Gove land rights case in 1971 by setting in train a royal commission into Aboriginal land rights under Justice Woodward.
Oh God, I'm getting goosebumps again.
So there was a legal case that failed in the court in 1972 where basically Indigenous people were trying, and this is me ad-libbing, so please don't hate me, listeners, if I'm getting it wrong, where they had, campaigned to try to get land rights, but he decided to set up a royal commission to investigate Indigenous people's land rights. Yeah. The findings of the royal commission would lead to the drafting. This is 1972.
I know.
Would lead to the drafting of the Aboriginal Land Rights in Northern Territory Act 1976 and the establishment of an elected National Aboriginal Consultative Committee. In 1972, the government also established the Department of Aboriginal Affairs in response to the 1967 referendum constitutional change that gave the Australian government responsibility to make laws for Aboriginal people.
And they passed it back then, did they?
Hey?
And it won the referendum. Yeah.
The referendum won. But they drafted a consultative committee to, combat that in some ways, in probably very small ways, but still, they recognized that they'd lost the fight and they decided to do something about it.
Yeah.
In January 1973, Australia reopened its embassy in Peking, resuming diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China after 24 years. Gough and Margaret Whitlam set out on a visit to Indonesia in September 1973 and travelled through Southeast Asia. On the 31st of October, Whitlam became the first Prime Minister to visit the People's Republic of China.
Wow.
As well as setting up new government departments in 1973, the Whitlam government amalgamated the various defence departments into a single agency. You're going to love this one. There's so many you're going to love. Yeah. On the 25th of July 1973, the Australian Legal Aid Office was established with offices in each state capital to give people legal advice that they needed. There was an actual office set up with all offices in capitals. I love this one too. Legislation was passed in August 1973 to establish the National Film and Television School in Sydney.
Oh, cool.
In November, the Prime Minister...
fucking progressive.
Oh, mate, it gets better. In November, the Prime Minister unveiled a plaque launching the construction of a National Gallery in Canberra. The government purchased blue poles by US artist Jackson Pollock for the gallery at a cost of $1.3 million. This was the highest price ever paid for a modern painting. I'm going to skip that. In December 1973, the government established the Australian Development Assistance Agency to manage overseas aid programs and the Schools Commission to implement a needs-based program of financial aid to government schools.
Wow.
The government also passed a bill lowering the voting age to 18.
From 21, I'd imagine, yeah.
Yeah. So this is his first year. Now we're going to go on to his second year.
Fucking boss.
I know. So the reform program, this is what they were calling his progressive strategy, was the reform program for regional development, produced results through direct grants to local government bodies around Australia. Grant programs included flood mitigation, urban renewal. Urban renewal. God, the next episode's going to be fun. Leisure and tourist facilities and building sewerage systems in unserviced urban areas.
Wow.
Under the Department of Urban and Regional Development, the Albury-Wodonga Development Corporation was established in 1974. It was intended to be a model for similar schemes elsewhere.
Could you imagine what the government would have been like for the 2 decades prior to this? Was it 2 decades?
Yeah.
2 decades prior to this.
Before Labor came in, yeah.
Before this reform started happening, how shit it would have been for a lot of people.
And he just got in and went, you know what? Fuck it. Labor's in. I'm going to fuck some shit up, mate. I'm going to just change everything I can and to make it better for Australia.
Like,
and
I like Labor now.
Rely on this. Like, all the stuff that he changed.
Still a lot exists still. And we do rely on, exactly. But like, I still admire Labor, but this is when Labor was literally for the people.
This was when it kicked ass.
Yeah.
There's more. There's way more. So regional funding programs provided direct funding for community health centres and regional-based hospitals.
Wow.
And you got to think, like, how many people we have in regional areas. Yes, everyone's always like, we're all along the coast. But it's not just about the people who live on the coast who have a little bit more of a disposable income. It's about the regional parts of Australia that need our support.
The rural and remote areas.
Funding.
That's what I work in, is with the whole shortage of rural doctors. And yeah.
By specifying the purpose of financial grants to the states, the government financed a national highway system and a standard gauge railway line linking Perth, Adelaide, Sydney, and Alice Springs. Brisbane City railway system was extended and electrified.
Oh, yeah.
So the opposition majority in the Senate was a major obstacle to the government bill. So sorry, people, I know it's getting a little bit dreary with the whole political stuff, but there's a reason I have to talk about the opposition.
There's a lot of it, yeah.
The Senate's rejection of 6 bills provided the trigger for a double dissolution election in May 1974, when 18-year-olds voted for the first time. Labor was returned with 49.3% of the vote and a reduced majority in the House of Representatives. Although its Senate vote increased by 5%, the government was still without a majority in the House.
Yeah.
On the 5th of August, the Northern Territory and the Australian Capital Territory were each granted 2 Senate seats. I really don't want to go on to... Okay, I'm going to have to. After national polling on 8th of April 1974, Advance Australia Fair replaced God Save the Queen as Australia's national anthem.
Yeah. In
June, the government appointed a National Advisory Committee for the United Nations proposed International Women's Year in 1975. Wow. Margaret Whitlam chaired the committee. 2 royal commissions were announced in August 1974, one into human relationships and another into intelligence and security. The Trade Practices Commission was established on the 1st of October, and the Australian Law Reform Commission was formally established on the 1st of January 1975.
Wow.
He's just like, we're cleaning this bitch up.
Yeah, we're making changes, and he fucking made it. Could you imagine the stress, the pressure, the influence, trying to change shit? Trying to change his mind, trying to hinder what he was doing, put barricades up, and he just powered through.
And then they still got rid of him.
Yeah, well, the Governor General did.
The Australian National Parks and Wildlife Service was established in 1974 as part
Jesus.
of the Department of Environment and Conservation.
And there is no way that shit would be going anywhere
No.
today. That's like when people say, you know, oh, you're woke, and the whole woke thing that's happening now. All these people back then were woke AF, and look at the shit they've done, and look at the things we still
I dare
progress
anyone
with.
to do as many things as this bloke started in
Yeah.
fucking politics.
Go
Seriously.
on, do it. Yeah. But for the good.
After Cyclone Tracy destroyed most of Darwin on Christmas Eve 1974, Whitlam returned from a trip to Europe and inspected the devastation, and then voiced to the public his sympathies and stuff. So he was overseas and he went, fuck this, I'm coming back.
It's my country.
People are in trouble. I'm going to go check it out and help them if I can. So his final year as Prime Minister, the Whitlam government continued its rapid pace of change. An Order of Australia replacing the British Honours System was announced on Australia Day, 26th of January 1975. In March, the Australian Film Commission and the Australia Council were established, and in April, a Consumer Affairs Commission commenced operation. In July, the Australian Heritage Commission was established. In May, when a Technical and Further Education Commission was set up, the Whitlam government was able to introduce reforms at every tier of education, including a national employment and training scheme and the abolition. And the abolition. And the abolition of university tuition fees.
Yes, I was wondering if you were going to mention that. Yeah, where people went to university.
In May, when a Technical and Further Education Commission was set up, the Whitlam government was able to introduce reforms at every tier of education, including a national employment and training scheme, and he got rid of university tuition fees.
Yeah, I know that there's a whole heap of people that went through uni that didn't have to pay.
Oh.
How fucking amazing. Like, you're giving people opportunities that can't afford it, and you're allowing great minds to fucking further their education and do better for our country.
But because he set that standard, that's how HECS came about. And they still have to, I know that it's different from paying it for free, but we've still got affordable education.
Yeah.
You can go to any uni in this country and you can add it to your motherfucking tax bill.
Yeah.
For as long as you want.
Yeah.
And you only pay it back when you start earning a certain amount.
Yeah. It's like, great.
It's not like free education in some parts of the world, but it's
access.
Excellent compromise.
It's access, yeah.
In June, the Family Law Act 1975 was enacted, creating the first no-fault divorce procedure in the world, and providing for a national family court. In June, the Racial Discrimination Act.
So what do they mean by no fault? That you can just have a divorce because we're no longer in love. It's not because he cheated on me. I beat on him. Yeah.
Which is different from other parts in the world as well, because you can actually literally divorce someone and say, I don't want to be married to you anymore. And it's cool. We go our separate ways. We're incompatible. And it's not like you're a terrible person. You have to get your church involved. You have to pay ridiculous fees. It's like, see ya. We don't be married anymore. Everyone's young. Everyone makes silly decisions sometimes.
Oh, totally.
Where was I? Oh, yeah. And in June, the Racial Discrimination Act 1975 also became law.
Fantastic.
Ratifying a United Nations convention that, although signed by Australia, had remained unratified for 9 years.
Wow.
At the United Nations, Australia gave support to non-racial voting at the General Assembly, changing Australia's voting on South Africa. Australia also banned...
South Africa?
Yeah, I'll go on a bit. Australia also banned South Africa supporting teams while the country remained under an apartheid regime.
Apartheid, yeah.
They continue to travel overseas and build international relations. This is my favourite. Okay, one of the most sweeping of the Whitlam government's domestic reforms during 1975 was the establishment of Medibank.
I was wondering, oh my God, Medibank or Medicare?
Medibank.
It was Medibank, yeah. I'm thinking, what's the one now that's Medi?
It's Medicare now, but it's Medibank.
But what's the bank? What's the private health one?
Medibank. It got brought out, but Medibank was Medicare. It's just the name has
Originally,
changed.
right.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. Enabled by the
Free health.
Insurance Act 1975, which was passed at 1974, joint sitting of Parliament. The National
Take note,
Health
America.
Care Scheme began operating on the 1st of July 1975 and incorporated many recommendations. Comprehensive changes were also made in social welfare areas, supporting mothers' benefit, and a welfare payment for homeless people were introduced.
God almighty. What a fucking legend.
Mate, it just keeps going and going and going, doesn't it? It's just like,
yeah,
he was there for like 3 years.
Yeah. And usually, by standards, prime ministers will maybe do 2 of these things if they're lucky. Like that have that much effect on a positive way on the world, on the country. Sorry.
This one's going to be interesting to you. So he also introduced in July 1975 2 new communications agencies, Telecom and Australia Post. And then what happened? They both got privatised, didn't they?
Yeah, but years after.
Replacing one of the first departments established at Federation, the Postmaster General's Department. So they were both government-owned entities that became privatised.
Yeah. Well, look at Sequeb and all that shit too. Became Energex.
Another 3 major inquiries were appointed in 1975, a Royal Commission on Norfolk Island, an environmental inquiry into Fraser Island, and the Ranger Uranium Environmental Inquiry. So it was all about the environment too, even back then. You know what I'm saying? On 16th of August 1975, the Prime Minister formally handed, and I'm sorry about the pronunciation, the Gurungi people at Waddy Creek in the Northern Territory title deeds to part of their traditional lands. This was the culmination of a decade of struggle silence since the Gurungi first walked off Wave Hill Station to claim their traditional lands at Dagaragu. A month later, Papua New Guinea celebrated independence from Australian administration. So there was a whole lot of rivalry.
So Papua New Guinea was under Australian administration. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I knew that. So rivalry among ministers, including Whitlam and his Attorney General Lionel Murphy, so a different dude that kicked him out, exasperated the government's difficulties. So the crisis came in the loans affair, yada, yada, yada. There's a whole bullshit thing. But basically, the opposition was holding up the budget based on trying to hold votes back because they had the majority in the Senate. Again, apologies if I'm trying to ad-lib this a little bit because I don't want to read through it all because it's really, really quite lengthy. So it was held up in court. It was held up in Parliament. The plan ended up being abandoned, and secret negotiations continued. Whitlam sacked both of his ministers because they weren't really doing the right thing. And then the loans affair enabled the new Liberal Party leader, Malcolm Fraser, to justify refusing to vote on the budget. Fraser, what did I say? Malcolm Fraser. To justify refusing to vote on the budget bills in the Senate. The aim was to force the government to an election while its electoral fortunes were in decline. So again, on and on, politics, a little bit of in-house bickering. Queensland Labor Senator Bert Milner died in June 1975 and the government was replaced by Joh Bjelke-Petersen. So that impacted things. That's another
fucking era of shit for Queensland.
Yeah. So the dismissal. Whitlam decided against calling another double dissolution, even though he sacked a couple of his people to try to, get the budget to go through. And from October 1975 to November 1975, the Parliament was in its worst political deadlock on the budget. And we know, when did that happen for us? Not that long ago. How many years ago were they locked in the budget?
Oh, God.
When was that? It was a couple of years ago, wasn't it? Where no one could, because we had wasn't it when, what's her name was in, the lady?
Julia Gillard.
Yes, because it was, there was only like one point on each side. Remember how gridlocked it was?
Yeah.
Because it was so even. There was
because the Labor had to rely on the independents to join them.
Exactly. And correct me if I'm wrong, I could be wrong about this, but do you remember when it was gridlocked the budget for ages?
Kind of, not really.
Yeah, so this is the same thing, but quite different in the financial climate of 75 compared to the financial climate of now.
Yeah.
So it kept going on. And then the Governor General, the newer Governor General, Sir John Kerr, broke the deadlock in an unprecedented move when Whitlam visited Kerr to call for a half Senate election. The Governor General withdrew his commission as Prime Minister and replaced him with Malcolm Fraser as caretaker Prime Minister until an election could be held. So basically, he went to him and said, hey, let's try to figure it out. Let's see what we can do. And he said, nah,
You're out.
You're out. I'm taking it off you. I'm going to give it to the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
The Senate passed the budget on the same day. So it went through anyway, which is what he was trying to do. And on the 12th of November, opposition with the minority in the House of Representatives replaced the government. The dismissal sparked fierce public debate. Whitlam contended that the 1975 budget had been stalled, not rejected, and as some Liberal senators later confirmed, they would soon have the vote in the Senate anyway. He argued that the crisis was political, not constitutional, that it could have been resolved by political means, and if not for Sir John Kerr's action, it would have been resolved in his government's favour. But that was it. It was the end. End of an era.
Yeah. What an era.
And he never got back. He never came back.
He just left it then. He was like, fuck it. Well, he achieved so much though, didn't he?
My God.
He probably is like, okay, I've got everything I needed to get through done.
Yeah. But
thank God he didn't drag his toes.
He couldn't have known then that all that stuff that he put into play would have caused the legacy that it had now. He would have just been sitting there going, look, this is right. I think it's going to be good for people. But he wouldn't know that we'd still abide by most of that stuff now.
Yeah.
Like he changed the landscape of everything that we do as Australians.
Yeah, agreed.
Like Medicare, uni, legal aid.
Indigenous rights. Even though they're still fucking
up for debate.
Yeah. So do you know what he said when as part of his farewell speech? At the end, he said,
I don't.
God save the Queen, because nothing will save the Governor General.
That's amazing.
Isn't that
I can see by the look on his face, he's not like a vindictive person.
Yeah. But he's not vanilla either. He's not going to fucking be pushed around.
Him. I absolutely love him. I think he's amazing.
And do you remember
that, we lived in that time? How
totally. My mum's era in politics and the things that she fought for and the environment and the atmosphere that was around is the type of shit we totally would have thrived in.
Yeah,
totally.
Absolutely.
Do you know that song by Paul Kelly, From Little Things Big Things Grow?
Yeah.
So that is about the whole situation where he was in, you were talking about it in 1975 about the land title where they had the strike off and all that. So there's a picture, and I've got it and I'll use it in our promos, of where he's got a handful of soil and he's pouring the soil into the hand of traditional landowner Vincent Lingari.
Yes.
And that's about them claiming the land. So this is a line from the song of From Little Things Big Things Grow, which is based on what Gough did.
Yeah.
That was the story of Vincent Lingari, but this is the story of something much more, how power and privilege cannot move a people who know where they stand and stand in the law. Amazing. And do you remember when he presented the Album of the Year award to the Whitlams? At the Arias?
I forgot about that.
He came on to present, and everyone knew straight away as soon as he was on there that the Whitlams had won. Because why else would they have Gough Whitlam presenting this award?
God, what a legendary experience.
Totally.
I would have loved to have met him in real life. I would have been just like, dude.
And you know how my mum's met him. She's got photos with him. You know that whole when you said about the dismissal, there's actually a mini series called The Dismissal, which is based on that, which breaks my mother's heart every time she watches it.
What? How old is it?
1983. Do we know any of the people in there? Do you know? Oh, Bill Hunter.
Oh, I love Bill Hunter. He's in
it. Ruth Cracknell, mother and son.
Oh yeah, I love Ruth. She's dead now, isn't she?
Yeah. She was old back then. Peter Carroll, Tim Elliott, who's got no shirt on in this picture. which is bizarre. American mixed martial
I would love to
artist.
see them do like a recent version, like, you know.
Oh yeah, totally, and actually really fucking nail all the shit he did.
Yeah. Because it would be so like, you know, it's almost like the Crown stuff with what's his name?
Oh yeah,
Who's
totally.
What's the guy that I love as well? And he's the Third Rock from the Sun guy that plays
John Lithgow.
John Lithgow. Who's the politician?
Oh,
Oh my god, I
oh
love
my
him.
God. We will storm them on the
Yes.
beaches.
What's his
We
name?
will, yeah. Oh my God, I can't believe I cannot remember this because
Oh,
Gough Whitlam's stuck in my head.
Oh no, me too.
Winston
It's
Churchill.
Winston Churchill. I also love him.
Yeah,
Love him.
yeah, he
I
was
think he's
also a boss.
amazing. Thought it was
Also a
really
boss.
cool. That's what they need to do. They need to do a Gough Whitlam special. That's that level of The Crown with
Yes,
Winston
yeah,
Churchill.
yeah.
I love Winston Churchill in The Crown. He's the best.
Agreed. Well, that was definitely a much higher buzz to end on.
I tried to
Than Anne
skip a lot,
Frank.
so I'm sorry, listeners, if I got very political. It was hard for me to represent his change in an accurate way without talking about the
Well, you had to.
you know, changes, because
We're not getting political. We're just
the
talking
politics.
political.
I mean, because I am not the most educated political person in terms of what happens in the Senate versus the fucking House of Representatives.
Well, I mean, it's all very confusing. Well, thanks for listening. We hope you got all the inspirational feels from this episode, even though they got pretty rough sometimes. We ended on a high note. Thank you, Skye.
Don't kill me for any inaccuracies.
Oh, dittos.
Tune in next week for What's the Haps, the episode where we discuss the events from the last 4 weeks that piqued our interest. Plus, make sure to follow us on our socials at StupidBSayWhat, including YouTube, where you can see the follies of our shows firsthand. And remember, if you're whining, you're winning.
Guess what? I'm winning.
Good night, stupid bitches. Cheers.
Good night. Cheers, stupid bitches.
Fuck, I need to piss.
Yes. Well, yeah, that stupid bitch. He's a stupid bitch. What a stupid bitch. That stupid bitch.